So as a member of Gen Z, I feel like it is fair to say that horror movies have a really tough time portraying this generation. If you really break down who is running the film industry, it would probably go mostly boomers, a fair amount of Gen X, some millennials making a name for themselves, and a tiny amount of Gen Z. Horror movies love to focus on young characters, probably because you can use that to justify them being stupid and to appease certain demographics. However, when the grand majority of the people in charge of portraying a younger generation is far removed from that group, they have a tough time portraying them in a fair way. I believe the divide culturally between millennials and Gen Z was further widened by the internet and social media. This divide will be more apparent when Gen Alpha movies become a thing. So you feel this obligation to put young people in your horror movies, but since millennials are no longer considered young, what do you do? Well, the main thing is to avoid it by making movies about older people or going full period piece. You could even set it in modern day, but not lean so hard into Gen Z stereotypes like the new Scream movies. While that seems to be the more respectable route, some have tried their hand at Gen Z horror. A grand majority of it is completely internet-based, but usually comes off as old people making a statement about how they don't know how to make a computer work.
This is probably a glitch.
Well, the glitch just typed!
We do occasionally get movies about generational clashes like Freaky or Totally Killer, but those can come off as pandering comedy.
The 80s are almost over and I haven't even tried Coke yet. I don't know.
Usually the portrayal of these younger characters is not very flattering. They love being on their phones, they are so shallow, and usually have very toxic relationships. Now these things can be true about people, but whether it works or not really comes down to what every movie should be judged on. Presentation. Now you can have a character be younger and have all these traits, but as a filmmaker, are you presenting a rounded character, or are you creating a stereotype so you can take pot shots at a generation you don't think is as good as yours? Look, there's a lot to make fun of Gen Z about, but you need to be clear with what you're trying to do, or it could just come off as petty. You can have shallow characters in your movie, but still present them as real characters, or use it as an excuse just to have bad writing. So for this video, I want to talk about two horror comedies that take a shot at portraying Gen Z. One of which I think is the pinnacle, and the other which shows what can happen when you fumble it so badly. These movies are Bodies, Bodies, Bodies from 2022, and It's What's Inside from 2024. I loved the former, and the latter kind of pissed me off. Cannot remember the last time I was so angry watching a movie where I was just annoyed by every aspect. What is even more frustrating is that it seems the general consensus across most major rating sites is that these movies are of similar quality. They even have a similar premise. Friends reunite in a lavish setting for a get-together where they play a party game, only for the night to spiral out of control, with secrets being brought to light forever damaging relationships. While Bodies attempts to stay more grounded with its inciting incident, Inside opts for something more sci-fi. By the way, I'm going to refer to them as Bodies and Inside for brevity's sake from now on. Now, let's get into what makes these movies the polar opposites in terms of quality. I'm going to bounce back and forth between these two movies in comparable chunks and break down moment by moment what works or doesn't in each of them. Spoilers ahead. Let's start with Bodies. Bodies uses its opening shot to immediately establish what the movie is going for in terms of themes and story. We begin with an extremely uncomfortable close-up of our two leads, Bee and Sophie, making out with every audible lip smack intact. We see Sophie open her eyes while Bee's remains closed. It creates an immediate sense that there is some distrust brewing in the relationship, which is key for the events of the movie. Sophie tells Bee she loves her for the first time, then has this extremely funny cut to establish these characters' generation. The contrast of two people connecting in nature to them being swallowed by their phone screens shows some balance and interest that even though they are social media obsessed Zoomers, they are still people. It adds some much needed dimension, especially as these two will be the main focus. We established during their car ride that Bee is about to meet Sophie's friend group at her childhood best friend's house where they will hunker down for a hurricane party. This is the first time Bee is meeting them and Sophie has not seen them in a while. This is great as we establish so much about these characters before we meet them, from the fact they are planning to party in a big mansion while a potentially destructive hurricane rages outside. Bee being new to this friend dynamic also creates an easy entry point for viewers as she needs to be told information, giving context to her character and us, the audience. There's also a quick mention that something is up with Bee's mom, but it is left for some mystery. We meet Sophie's friend group, where we easily establish who is coupled up based on their arrangement while they are holding their breath underwater. Sophie makes her appearance, and we learn each character's relationship with her from how they react to it. Bubbly podcaster Alice is excited to see her, David and his girlfriend Emma are surprised at her being there, Jordan is extremely cold, and Alice's older Tinder hookup, Greg, obviously has heard something but is trying just to have a good time. We get a hint Sophie has had some drug problems in the past but is sober before introducing everyone to B, who says later that they've only been together for 6 weeks. We are also shown David is threatened by how cool Greg seems. Jordan confronts B in private and shares Sophie's family has a lot of money and implies she knows Sophie pretty intimately. Sophie and David have a private conversation where they naturally establish their banter, making them feel like lifelong friends. David says they had another friend, Max, but he punched David the other night and left with no reason given. Sophie asks if David has talked to her parents about something before cutting to be awkwardly trying to get to know the group. While there has not been a lot of score yet, the movie up to this point is filled with licensed music, but feels very modern to what the generation would listen to, so it fits. It also helps give the film a dose of energy during this series of initial setups. The group begins to really party, where we see some passive-aggressive jealousy from multiple characters, with the most important being Sophie becoming uncomfortable when Jordan starts grinding up on B. She halts the music in retaliation and proposes they play a game called Bodies, Bodies, Bodies.
Who wants to play Bodies, Bodies, Bodies?
These opening 20 minutes are excellent. We learn just enough to be enticed, with enough small moments that could be foreshadowing for a darker turn later. Most importantly, it gives us a good sense of what everyone's place is in this dynamic, which is so important to the drama of this kind of film. This is a great way to start the movie. So let's show how Inside attempts to do the same thing, but fumbles horribly. The first shot of the film is a myriad of lights from a machine as we see the reflection of a man locking it up. For context, this is a body swap movie. I attempted to avoid any marketing material for this movie, but the day I was supposed to watch it, an article popped up with the title comparing it to Freaky Friday with this image, so I kind of figured it out. This is important to know, as with this knowledge in my brain, it makes the opening scene so much more transparent in what it is trying to do. Our first character is Shelby, who is wearing a wig for roleplay to excite her boyfriend Cyrus. Before she comes out, Cyrus jerks it to porn and even the couple's famous influencer friend Nikki. You're not supposed to be aware that they know her at this point, but it is important to know. Shelby tries to seduce him, but the vibe is off, so they end up fighting, clearly communicating they are having intimacy issues. So to me, this movie's flaws become immediately apparent. This whole fight is just two people talking over each other and stumbling over words, making the same points over and over again.
A little bit more enthusiastic, encouraging, like, wow, about me here in a wig, and the whole get-up.
A couple fighting can be hard to execute, but bodies can do it, and even something like Midsummer. This argument just does not hit in any sort of meaningful way other than matching the theme of pretending to be somebody else. Yes, I understand this couple is not getting along, but it does not feel genuine in any way. I feel like I'm watching two actors say dialogue instead of two characters fighting. It also isn't funny. You may not think it is supposed to be, but I think this hard cut to the title is supposed to be comedic.
Why are you doing it? Oh, no one made you.
Comparing it to something like the title drop in Cabin in the Woods.
Are you even listening to me?
The film is clearly trying to get us to laugh at the messy fight, but it just isn't working. We then transition to an extremely overdone social media montage to introduce other characters and set up the plot. We learn one character is getting married and everyone else gets their single character trait established.
Did you bring sage? Sage? No, I did not bring sage, but I did bring some other goodies.
The main thing this montage establishes in terms of story is that Shelby is jealous of the attention Nikki gets online, even deleting her own post, because it does not get enough engagement. While social media can make you feel insecure, the way this film establishes this is very heavy-handed. Like Cyrus left a fire emoji on Nikki's thirst post saying, "Hey cutie," and Shelby keeps looking at it with the VO repeating over and over again.
Oh, hey, cutie.
Fire emoji.
Oh, hey, cutie.
Fire emoji.
The film goes out of its way to over-explain itself with this insistence that it is much more complicated than it is. It feels like an annoying friend that keeps reiterating a part of a story over and over again because they think you're too stupid to figure it out. This plays into another problem I have with this film: the visuals and the editing. In my Euphoria video, I talked about how visuals need to be motivated or they just feel like flash for flash sakes, and boy is that ever apparent here. This shot, where it splits into two, is the exact moment where I began to think, oh, this movie is going to suck, isn't it? This over-stylized visual element is present throughout the movie, and I just can't help but feeling like it is overcompensating. Like, Bodies also looks good, but doesn't rely on visuals as it wants you to really absorb the tone and the characters. Inside's constant flash feels less like something to enhance the viewing experience and more to do it just because they could. The editing creates this barrage of image and information, and maybe I am just old, but there's so much of this film I did not even process the first time I watched it because of how much it throws at you. So while I was editing, I found this shot that I didn't really process in all the times I've gone through this movie of a bird flying into Shelby's face, and it's some of the worst CGI you could possibly imagine. Like, it looks like a pre-rendered plugin that they just inserted into the film. Just wanted to point this out as another thing I had missed because of the editing style. If I had actually liked the movie, I would have felt rewarded for watching it again, but I hated what I saw from one viewing, and everything I missed did not help improve that experience. Also, the film has a constant score of classical sounding music to be funny, I guess. It does not fit the mood or tone and feels very slapped on. We then reach our central location, a sprawling old mansion which will serve as a wedding venue in the morning. When we pull up to the house, I had missed this line from Cyrus establishing the house is filled with art installations because I was distracted by the music, editing, and even the poor sound mixing.
Living in this house, throwing parties, turning the place into art installations, like vaginal art installations?
The argument can be made that the movie is cut like this for the low attention spans of Gen Z, but to me as an editor, it's more important to cut a scene to the pace it needs to be than just quickness for quickness sake. Especially in a movie about characters having relationship conflicts, you want every piece of a character's relationship clear, so you should always prioritize audiences take that in before a trippy visual. Maybe you can follow what is going on better than me if your brain is fried from TikTok. Like, this upcoming scene is shot like it's supposed to be overwhelming, but nothing in the scene is actually overwhelming. We are just meeting people who are kindly greeting them. Some of them had misheard they were getting married, but it's not nerve-wracking. We meet the majority of our cast very quickly. We get a physical appearance of Nikki, Dennis the partying dirtbag,
Ruben's getting fucking hit. Shit.
Maya the spiritual one, Brooke the cool stoner one, and the groom Ruben, who just seems like a fun guy. Everyone introduces themselves, doubling down on their one trait, while not feeling genuine at all or dropping not so subtle foreshadowing for later conflicts.
Is that peanut butter?
Yeah, I thought you partnered with like a peanut butter brand.
No, babe, cashew butter. I'm allergic to peanut butter.
Really good CGI sage smoke, by the way. We then get the first of many kinetic editing sequences where everything is presented as stills that can even be edited as characters are talking. It is very clearly the filmmaker's attempt to make necessary exposition more fun to watch, I guess. But again, the point is to get the info across, and it is hard to take in this info while annoying characters constantly correct themselves.
Yeah, Janice, right?
No, Beatrice.
Right.
It is also scored with funny little sound effects when things pop in, which isn't grating at all. Worse even, somehow, the characters in these stills are still bad at acting. Like here, she is supposed to be reacting to being attacked, but looks like she is doing it mockingly while trying not to laugh. Again, you can say it looks ungenuine because it is supposed to be funny, but it isn't funny. If you thought this movie was funny, try for a second to look at it from my perspective. That if you didn't think it was funny, what else does this movie have to offer? The annoying edit made me zone out, and it moved so quickly that despite it probably being the most important info for the story, it was difficult to keep it all together. Maybe this movie benefits from being on Netflix so you can rewind or even slow it down. The sequence introduces Forbes, who in college was called Game Boy because he liked games. Yes, this is the level we are at. Anyway, Forbes brought his high school-age sister to a college party where she saw her crush Dennis with Nikki. She made a scene causing Forbes to get involved, ending with his expulsion from school and no one in this friend group ever speaking to him again, only knowing he is involved in tech. So this was all just the first 15 minutes of the movie, and since I already knew it was a body swap movie, it was fair to assume Forbes being the mysterious Game Boy, it was safe to say he was gonna cause the swapping. But at this moment, I also thought, they spent a lot of time establishing Forbes' sister, Beatrice, so she also most likely will be in this movie in some capacity, right? It seems she personally has more conflict with these guys than Forbes does, but Forbes is invited and she isn't. So how are they going to get her involved in this body swap movie? So unless you've seen the movie, or you're not dumb as a rock, you get what I am implying. Like, that would be the most obvious thing ever, right? Like, the whole movie is not going to hinge on that being true, right? Well, let's just move on for now, and we'll see how things play out. So anyway, Forbes shows up with a briefcase, and that is all for the initial setup before we get into the real meat. This is about 20 minutes into this movie, and what has been established so far about our characters. Shelby and Cyrus are having relationship issues. Shelby is jealous of Nikki. Cyrus wants to sleep with Nikki. Nikki is an influencer. Ruben is attracted to Maya. Brooke is artsy. Maya is spiritual. Forbes is a mysterious techie gamer who has a complicated relationship to the group, and Dennis has a trust fund.
Oh wow, not all of us have a trust fund.
A lot of this information is either explicitly told to whack you over the head with it or is shown visually, but is mixed in at a sickening pace due to the fast-cutting style. Most of this feels very surface level, and other than Forbes, leaves very little up for speculation or interpretation. Anyway, since their game is about to begin, let's move back to Bodies, where their game was just starting. Sophie explains the game is like Mafia, where one person is deemed a killer and everyone plays hide and seek in the dark until someone is found playing dead, which leads the players voting out who they think the killer is. Emma establishes how this game has started heated drama in the past. We are also shown the group's odd ritual where everyone hits each other before the game, with Jordan and David using it as an opportunity to take out some anger. It is never explained why they do this, but it naturally functions to show how close these people are. Once the game starts, to me the most impressive visual aspect of this film gets to show off, which is the use of lighting and shadows. A lot of this movie takes place in the dark, while using natural light sources to illuminate our characters. It allows everything to feel mysterious, while at the same time letting the viewer see enough to continue following the story. Lighting dark scenes while feeling natural is genuinely difficult, and is more impressive visually than shoving 20 flashy editing tricks into one frame. Greg is the first to be killed off in the game, and leaves when he can't take David poking fun at him. David and Emma get into a fight in front of everyone as David is voted the killer, causing him to storm off.
Fuck this game!
The five girls attempt to continue the game when the power goes out. Thinking it is a prank, everyone goes off to find lights, David, or in B's case, the bathroom. This brings us to the turning point, where B finds David bleeding from the neck outside the house. The other girls join as David bleeds to death. Obviously, the party is over, so the girls try to take Sophie's car to get help. But B accidentally left an overhead mirror open earlier, causing the battery to have died. Now, this was obviously set up earlier in the film pretty heavy-handedly, but this is something very important to note on how I view film. Despite this being something to criticize Bodies for, I've liked what I've seen so far, so I can kind of forgive the bad choices, while Inside has so many bad choices that it makes me appreciate the good choices even less. I do want to praise this shot here where the camera spins around in the car as all the characters are freaking out. The ringing score in the background helps add to the rising tension as everyone gives very convincing performances. It is a flashy camera movement, but it complements the scene instead of being the scene. Jordan finds a bloody sword outside that Greg had used earlier, causing everyone to be suspicious. They suspect Max, the missing friend, for a moment, but then start dogpiling on Greg as they know so little about him. I want to comment on how great the dialogue is in this movie, as the scene manages to feel very in character while also managing to be funny at times.
So if you could just not escalate this situation,
I'm not escalating. You're holding the knife and you're moving your hands while you talk.
It also works because we have learned these characters can be very petty about small details, and while not letting shallowness be the majority of their characters. Despite being in a highly tense scenario, they still manage to resort to Gen Z buzzwords because it is so ingrained into their personalities.
He's a Libra moon, that says a lot! Fuck!
They find Greg's luggage to find weird survivalist gear. While it was established earlier that they were told Greg is a vet who served in the army, the girls are even more convinced he might have killed David. Small moment, but when searching Jordan's room, B sees one of Jordan's bras. It may seem not important, but it will pay off. They find Greg in an indoor basketball court sleeping in a sleep therapy mask when the girls confront him. Again, I need to praise the acting and dialogue as the girls are obviously scared and cautious, while Greg is still in fun mode, slowly realizing something is wrong. It makes sense from both parties as the girls just don't tell him what is going on in fear he may lash out and attack, while Greg thinks it is a joke as they have been messing with him all night. Every individual character reaction is justified by everything that was established prior. We even get to fully absorb the moment as there's no score playing over this scene. The confrontation becomes physical, ending with B killing David with a dumbbell after he squares up with Sophie. Alice still thinks he didn't do it, leading to hands down the funniest moment in the film.
He's a vet? Like Iraq or...
No, I thought it was Afghanistan.
He was a veterinarian. He was a veterinarian's assistant. Are you fucking serious right now?
Now with Greg dead and the group in doubt if he was the killer, let's go back to Inside to see how their game plays out. Forbes opens his briefcase to show the machine that was teased in the opening, saying it will be used to play a game. He has everyone attach wires to their temples where he does the first body swap only for 20 seconds as a demonstration. I actually like this Brady Bunch style visual where we can take in everyone's reaction to the swap at the same time. It is the first time the visuals feel complementary to a key moment than the visual being the whole moment. It might have been even more effective if this was the first instance of a flashy visual, but as covered, we have gotten plenty before this moment. If you think the previous flashiness is needed for viewers to even get to this point, then you're kinda just admitting the movie had nothing else going for it till now. The timing is very well handled as all the characters need to match the same moment of the swaps, with some characters continuing lines that were started in a different body. While I liked it, there does end up being some continuity mistakes as we cut back to normal close-ups, which feel sloppy instead of intentional. This goodwill is immediately squandered by the next shot as the camera starts spinning around, gaining speed while annoying music that doesn't match plays. I get what it is trying to do, but does not feel necessary at all as the moment and the acting should be enough to make the viewers feel discombobulated. The sound mixing and editing in this film is also really poor. As the camera spins, we just keep hearing the characters say some version of, "What the fuck?" or "I was in you," over and over as if we the audience need to really understand how strange it was.
Oh my god!
Forbes explains the machine and explains the game. He will switch everyone's bodies and then they need to try guess who is actually who. Some people are for it, giving their standard generic character trait answer, while others, specifically Shelby, is cautious, but Cyrus pressures her into playing so as not to ruin everyone's time. We get more annoying flashy editing as Forbes breaks down the rules of the game. Once the game starts, we get a simple visual cut that tells you Cyrus is transferred into Ruben's body, but since this movie thinks you are stupid, it is followed by this split screen only 2 minutes later where they literally spell it out just in case. I was expecting this movie to leave that ambiguous, so maybe someone could be more deceptive in gaining trust and maybe power playing a little bit, but we are painfully aware at all times of who is in whose body. Some people are exposed immediately, with oddly Forbes in Dennis's body claiming to be Cyrus. Cyrus obviously is shocked by this, but for some reason doesn't call him out. I guess he really wants to win the game despite looking very concerned here. In hindsight, the entire movie could have been resolved in this one moment if he did call him out, but you could argue Cyrus is a wimp or something, as the film up to this point has gone out of its way to make him pathetic. So he plays along and gets tagged as Forbes off screen. We never even find out who wins the round. The game is just not played after this moment, but everyone stays in different bodies. The scenes following lead to a huge problem I have with the film and its internal logic that is never given any sort of rational explanation. Why are they allowed to just wander around? From a game perspective, you usually just kind of stay in a circle until the game is over, only getting up to perform short menial tasks. In Bodies, the whole house is described as fairground, as hide and seek is an element to the rules, while the game here would be easily accomplished by just staying in a circle. When you add the fact that another person is in your body, would you be totally cool with someone else walking somewhere private with it? Like, none of them have any concerns with another person going into a room alone and getting naked or something. Ruben is revealed because he stopped Cyrus from whipping his dick out, so clearly he has a fear of that happening.
Alright, but seriously. Keep my dick in your pants.
Maybe that is why throughout the entire duration of this game, there are no gender swaps. They never discuss this topic, but it seems like a missed opportunity to me. Like, it would make the game harder and maybe add some more themes about identity, but I guess that is too interesting for this movie. Anyway, back to being allowed to wander in another person's body. While I think rational people in this situation would not allow anyone to just walk away with their body, there is one reason this happens, and that is because movie. Like Cyrus failing to call out Forbes, there would be no conflict if people weren't allowed to wander off alone. Every single action of consequence in this entire film only happens because people are allowed to go somewhere private in another person's body. If they were forced to stay in one place, the script would actually need to be written well. Oh, the horror. Here is something nice. I like this visual choice where the shot goes red to reveal who is actually in whose body. Would be neat if we weren't always told who everyone was. This was heavily telegraphed earlier in the film as Brooke is showing off her art where she uses RGB filters to show things hidden inside a drawing. So instead of us being allowed to notice it and make that connection, we have a character outright explain it to us so we can be so amazed when they do this later. It is still a nice simple visual that would have been better without this explanation. Blue and green is also incorporated into the film, but I don't care enough to dig into what it means or why it is used when present. It just needs to be brought up that RGB is very ingrained into this film's visual language. So moving on, Forbes as Dennis is using Dennis's phone in private. Bet that won't mean something later. Forbes tells Cyrus that pretending to be other people could be fun. We immediately see another consequence of allowing characters to be alone as Cyrus as Ruben is alone with Maya and Nikki. So Maya reveals that she used to be involved with Ruben, so she is attracted to his body, and obviously Cyrus is attracted to Nikki's body. So they start making out using their two non-consenting friends' bodies in private. Something that is a huge issue with this movie from a body swapping perspective is that no one really feels like they are embodying another person. I have already established how flat these characters are, but there is such little distinction in how they move or act to really allow an actor to portray this. To me, that has always been the appeal of a body swap movie, of seeing a character change demeanor, but that is absent from this film. The closest anyone embodies someone else is when they are supposed to be Dennis, because they just have to add yo and dog to the end of their sentences.
Finna watch my boy get hitched.
There is a single moment one actor got close to convincing me they were someone else that is sadly undercut by the ending of the scene, but that is later. Cyrus steps on some glass and Maya's body shows up and kills the mood. We get another scene where Cyrus is belittled by his friends, with Shelby again reiterating they are having intimacy issues. He decides to end the round under the guise of Forbes. Everyone is back in their bodies, and Cyrus is not eager to start round 2 as Forbes clumsily foreshadows future conflict.
Until after a while, you just want it to constantly switch.
Forbes establishes the machine can do one more round, so 2 more body swaps, before needing to recharge for 24 hours with whatever it runs on. He even offers to show Shelby how the machine works. Cyrus and Dennis get into a small argument which will pay off later. Cyrus and Shelby get into another argument where Cyrus tells her Forbes pretended to be him, and Shelby, who has been portrayed as overly cautious, sees nothing wrong with this, convincing Cyrus to play in round 2 on the condition they reveal to each other through a hand motion whose body they ended up in. The round starts and Cyrus ends up in Forbes and does his hand gesture with annoying sound design only to receive no response, leaving him not knowing who Shelby is. Only tries it with the 3 other women, as I guess the group had a no gender swap rule established off screen, but we're totally okay with people wandering off with their bodies to do whatever. Okay, so we are halfway through this movie and there still is no substantial conflict other than these people just kind of suck. So let's go back to bodies for something more interesting. So Sophie, under pressure, snorts some hidden coke, with Emma eventually joining her as well. We then see Alice looking for Emma before tripping over her dead body at the bottom of some stairs. Before I continue through the movie, I want to share what I thought was going to happen up to this point during my first watch. To be clear, I guessed Inside's twist 15 minutes into the movie. So to be fair, I wanted to say what I thought the twist for bodies would be by this point. And I kinda ended up being right. I essentially thought David was killed by some sort of debris from being outside, and every other death following was either going to be an unseen accident like Emma or through petty conflicts like Greg's. So while I could see where the story was going, I had liked what I seen up to this point, so it didn't really bother me because I was enjoying watching the movie. It is like that moment in Challengers with the serve at the end. Most people know it's gonna happen, but it still hits because you like the rest of the movie. By the way, watch Challengers. Good movie. So the remaining 4 are on the edge of sanity at this point and start theorizing they are being killed off one by somebody using the game Bodies, Bodies, Bodies as a template. They all turn on B as she is new to the friend group, so they know the least about her. They connect other evidence like her finding David first or killing Greg. Jordan shares she couldn't find any trace of her online connecting her to the college she claimed to go to. Sophie stands by as they throw B out into the storm and lock all the doors and windows. B goes back to the car for some shelter to find a matching bra she saw of Jordan's earlier. Is it a little on the nose that the exact same bra in color and style shows up in Sophie's car so we can know it is Jordan's? Yes, it is. I think having her name on the tag or something, while also heavy-handed, could have worked better, but I digress. B tries again to find a way into the house and sees Jordan take out a gun from a drawer. She resorts to crawling through a doggy door before arming herself to confront the 3 girls. Jordan denies having a gun, but does accidentally reveal she was selected as the killer in the game. B explains she dropped out of school to take care of her mom and has been secretly unemployed as she thought Sophie wouldn't like her otherwise. Jordan, in frustration, pulls out the gun as she still does not trust B. This gets the 3 friends to start really railing into each other. It feels all of them have been holding on to info to use against them at a later date, so it feels very natural. Sophie apparently only came back to ask David to convince her parents to give her back access to her trust fund. Sophie throws back that while they all did messed up stuff on drugs, she was the only one deemed a problem. Jordan throws back by stating her and Sophie hooked up in her car only a few days ago. So Sophie pulls out the biggest bomb of all. Jordan hate listens to Alice's podcast.
You hate listen to her podcast.
Wait, what?
Again, praise to the tone and writing, because while this is an extremely stressful moment, they still managed to figure out a way to make it funny without it being forced.
What is your podcast about? Hanging out with your smartest and funniest friend. Did you just groan?
I think what really helps this Gen Z dialogue work is that it's actually making valid commentary on class differences on how people like to victimize themselves even if they are privileged. Inside's Gen Z commentary is just they are all shitty and jealous people. So Alice gets shot and dies. Jordan goes into survival mode, ending in a struggle where B throws her off an upper floor railing. With her dying breath, she tells B to check Sophie's text messages to prove Sophie did cheat on her. She fires the gun at them and the final 2 survivors run off to hide somewhere else in the house. Now with all that set up for the big climax, let's see if Inside can drum up any excitement before its big finale. So as we start round 2, it is very apparent Shelby is now in Nikki's body as she posts on her social media accounts. One of the necessary plot conveniences this movie needs you to just roll with is that all these people have no locks on their phones or use Face ID. Weirdly, a lot of the characters' actions in this movie are only possible from being able to access another person's phone. And again, it is because movie. I will get to the bigger ones later, but want to point it out now as it is very contrived. So since Shelby is jealous of Nikki, she gets very into role-playing as her, even attempting to avoid revealing herself to Cyrus. She does get freaked out by a spider, so Cyrus knows it's her because he said out loud she got scared of a spider once, so that means it has to be her. Fuck, this movie sucks. Anyway, Cyrus takes Shelby to a literal greenhouse where they argue before she tries to sleep with him in their friends' non-consenting bodies. Cyrus gets freaked out and runs back to the house to call off the game. During all of this, Ruben in Dennis's body takes the opportunity to have sex with whoever is in Maya's body on a balcony alone in the bodies of their friends they never got the consent of. It is shown with the red reveal filter is Brooke, who is inside Maya's body, who reveals she loves Ruben?
I love you. I love you. I love you.
You would think the movie would establish this about Brooke before now, but they really didn't. It is mentioned after this scene where someone theorizes Brooke was jealous of Ruben's future wife.
I didn't realize Brooke was actually jealous of Sophia.
But you would think with how much this movie goes out of its way to make sure there is no room to figure out anything for yourself, this would be brought up in some sort of way. The closest I could find is this extremely small moment where Nikki calls Brooke a catch and Brooke is maybe looking longingly at Ruben for like 1 second. Again, this small moment is lost in a sea of other establishing info from this 3-minute span. It is poorly framed, so it is unclear if that was the intent or she was just uncomfortable talking about her love life, especially as the shot ends with her looking down before cutting to Ruben and Nikki. I had to scrub through every Brooke scene with my eyes peeled to find this breadcrumb of setup so small it may not even count. Hell, you could even do this circle effect that they use in the same scene to establish Ruben likes Maya, but do it for Brooke to Ruben. All I'm saying is that when Nikki's peanut allergy has more setup than someone's attraction to a friend getting married, you are doing something wrong. Well, maybe the movie can expand on this more. After all, Brooke has definitely received the least amount of character development. Oh wait, the railing broke, and they both fall to their deaths. Never mind. At least we have arrived to actual substantial conflict over an hour. Over halfway through this movie, Ruben dies in Dennis's body and Brooke dies in Maya's body. Clearly the game is over, so everyone reveals who's in whose body as they will all stay in them till the ending. So, Shelby is in Nikki, Cyrus is in Forbes, Forbes is in Ruben, Nikki is in Brooke, Maya is in Shelby, and Dennis is in Cyrus. Dennis freaks out at seeing his own dead body before going to mourn for a moment with Maya. Nikki wants to call the cops, but Forbes is against it as he is afraid they will confiscate his machine. Cyrus then suggests the most rational course of action is to switch back to their original bodies. This is what I thought right after the deaths happened. Just put Dennis into Ruben and Maya into Brooke and let everyone else go back to theirs, then discuss what course of action to take. Like, these two can never go back to their original bodies, so it doesn't really matter. However, the script says we need more contrived conflict. So Dennis is not cool with this idea because I guess he is selfish and petty and thinks, well, that if he can't go into his own body, none of them should. Even though it was none of their faults, and maybe he should take some responsibility in the fact he never once suggested that maybe it shouldn't be allowed to wander off in another person's body. Just stay in a circle, you dumbasses. All these people are terrible and do very little to hide it. Alice from Bodies is definitely not a good person, but I can see why she would be fun to be around. Everyone in this movie is extremely annoying and idiotic. Dennis is being a baby, and Maya says something spiritual about rebirth, implying she will steal Shelby's body because, like, Buddha, man.
This is our rebirth.
I get that they have seen something very traumatic, but this is way too irrational of a reaction. These are your supposed friends you are fucking over because you don't think the actions of two dead people were fair to you. So to continue more contrived conflict because movie, Dennis and Cyrus argue and start taking pot shots at each other. Dennis is called out for actually fucking Forbes' high school age sister, wonder why she's being brought up again, while he was dating Nikki, and in turn Dennis reveals Cyrus told Nikki about this to get her to break up with Dennis so Cyrus could be with her, making Shelby feel like the second choice when Nikki said no. Cyrus calls Dennis a burnout, and to finally end this parade of badly written conflicts, Dennis uses Cyrus's phone to call the police and frame Cyrus for the murders.
I pushed Dennis Markowitz and Maya Wilson off the roof.
Okay, so now Dennis has decided to frame the body he is currently in. The one he made a big deal not wanting to switch out of for murder and has absolutely no follow-up to this. I guess he is cool going to prison as long as Cyrus doesn't get into his body. Dennis just kind of sits around and does nothing for the rest of the movie. He isn't in any rush or helping either side in this debate anymore, so yeah, he really has no goal. This whole scene was so filled with logic jumps and annoyances, I was yelling at the screen in frustration. This is when I was certain there was no saving this movie. It was over. This was the worst movie of the year. Madam Web was funny, without even trying. While this tried and isn't funny, thus Madam Web is better. Forbes, also annoyed with these fucking people, tries to run away with the machine only to be knocked out by Nikki.
What?
So I can feel my heart rate going up in frustration talking about this, so let's finish up with Bodies before coming back to close this one out. Bee and Sophie hide in a steam room, where it becomes clear Bee has lost trust in Sophie and is afraid of her. She runs away as Sophie chases after her. We follow Bee as she makes her way through the house, passing by the bodies of the now dead friend group before making her way outside as it is now morning and the storm has passed. Sophie finds Bee, who holds her at gunpoint, demanding to see her text to try confirm if Sophie cheated on her with Jordan. They end up fighting through the hurricane's debris and stumble upon David's phone, which Bee unlocks by using the eye of David's body. See inside, it is not that hard to establish this is how phones in your world work instead of asking audiences to just assume that is the case for your shitty ass plot to work. Now with David's phone unlocked, the big twist is revealed. David was trying to film a TikTok where he does the sword trick Greg did earlier on but accidentally slashes his own throat. I can understand why people would be dissatisfied with this reveal, but from my perspective, It's funny. We see the horror of Bea and Sophie's faces as they realize that their relationship is ruined and all their friends are dead over a dumb TikTok video. They fought each other without context about social media. Brilliant. Also, the setup for it is executed perfectly. When Greg does the sword trick at the beginning, you go, oh, that's a cool thing that helps show David doesn't like Greg. You don't assume it is going to come back in a pivotal way, as it seems like a simple action done once and given no significance. Compared to Inside, where this character we have yet to see keeps being brought up in a body swap movie, making it so painfully obvious what is going to happen. All of a sudden, Max returns, played by Connor O'Malley for some reason.
I think I just slapped with Frankenstein chick! Oh no!
DC Time videos every Friday.
And asks what happened. Bea checks her phone and says,
I have reception.
in my opinion, great movie, especially when putting a Gen Z spin on a mystery whodunit. Every character felt well established, and it manages to escalate at a great pace while being funny and sometimes a bit scary. While the characters could be annoying and petty, it all felt in character and not just because movie. Speaking of which, let's end the shitstorm that is It's What's Inside. Nikki and Cyrus carry Forbes back inside, and Cyrus asks Shelby to operate the machine to do the switch as Forbes showed her how it worked earlier. Shelby states she doesn't want to go back because I guess she loves social media engagement or something. Nikki argues with Shelby about Nikki's supposed altruism, saying she could do a better job with her status. To point out once again the awful sound mixing, Dennis is laughing his ass off in the background as they fight. But his laugh is full volume when they aren't talking, only to be lowered when they are, despite him being in the same place the entire conversation.
You made an Instagram account. The amount of charities and nonprofit organizations.
It also plays a very similar ringing music track to the one in Bodies, except they never played this music over pivotal conversations, making the soundscape more overbearing. Again, another choice that screams having no confidence in what you are showing. Look, at this point, I'm just gonna be honest, I was really hoping they would start killing each other. These people are awful, who are totally cool with stealing or ruining people's lives over tiny insecurities. Like, this whole situation is so out of hand, might as well just end it, because there is no solution where everyone is seemingly satisfied. Nikki ties up Ruben while Cyrus goes to reason with Shelby, and for some reason Maya is there with her because she needs to be for how the scene plays out. This conversation is the one scene where the actor who plays Forbes really embodies Cyrus from his speech patterns and manner of speaking.
Not in a place particularly where I feel like I can totally do that at the moment.
See, I don't want to be looking at this Nikki face. I want to be looking at your face right now.
It made me wonder where this display of talent was for the entire rest of the movie. However, despite starting the scene strong, he ends it on a low note with this scummy delivery.
And I don't need to be Forbes or Ruben.
You can think Cyrus is scummy, but he is overplaying it in a scene where he is supposed to be convincing someone to trust him. It just ends up feeling overly insincere, so there is no room for misinterpretation of what this movie thinks about Cyrus. You didn't even need to portray it this way, as Maya immediately figures out he had made out with her earlier in Ruben's body because he mentioned he cut himself on glass in this room earlier, just so Maya could even figure that out. Shelby digs her heels in about not switching, and Cyrus says the thing I have been screaming at the TV for the last 30 minutes.
Into this new vessel to come here and correct all of our sins, to teach.
Shut up!
In a rare funny moment, Shelby gets Nikki to leave Forbes alone by threatening to post a video that would ruin her career, but just let her post it.
P.S. non sequitur. Is anyone else like totally over the whole Black Lives Matter shit, or is that just me?
She wants this body for the status, so let her ruin it and then be stuck with the consequences forever. Or, you know, just kill each other. There is shockingly little to salvage from your lives after this situation. Forbes gives Shelby an idea to offer Cyrus an ultimatum as a test. Either everyone goes back to their normal bodies, or if Cyrus really wants Nikki, she will put him in Ruben's body and they will run away together. Now, since Cyrus is dumb and is feeling pressured by the soon-to-be arriving cops, he says yes to the latter option. If he was me, I would have simply said, Shelby, I want you to choose what body you want to be in, because I don't give a shit anymore. Put me in Ruben's, because who else is using it, so Dennis can go suffer in fucking prison for being an asshole. It is implied that this is obviously not actually what Shelby is going to do as she talks to Maya. At the same time, Nikki and Dennis plot to stop this plan with another annoying still photograph sequence featuring Jared Leto and prison sexual assault jokes.
You're left in Cyrus's body, i.e. you go to jail and get fucking railed.
Funny stuff. Nikki also mentions she is cool with Cyrus going to prison because she learned of Shelby's plan from Forbes, even though she hasn't even asked Cyrus if that is happening yet, and she is just assuming, so fuck Cyrus, I guess. She even says later she will make sure he goes to jail for a murder she knows he did not commit.
I'm getting my body back, and when I do, I'm gonna do everything I can to make sure you stay in jail when the cops get you.
You would think maybe her rage should be aimed at Shelby for coming directly for her, but whatever. Team up with the guy who cheated on you with a high schooler, queen. Shelby sets the wiring, and to pay off another earlier force setup, Nikki uses peanut butter on her body to cause an allergic reaction to incapacitate her, so Forbes can change the wiring to Nikki's proposed swap. What is Nikki's proposed swap, you ask? Well, it doesn't matter. These conversations about ultimatums or scheming to switch bodies all didn't matter because of the twist I am going to reveal right now, because it's going to be told in the next 5 minutes. Are you ready? Forbes' sister Beatrice has been in Forbes this entire time. I know, who could have seen this coming? So she and Ruben's body only cares where she ends up, so she mysteriously changes the wiring without telling anyone who is going where. Dennis starts to freak out because Beatrice in round 1 actually drained his trust fund account, but he doesn't know it was her yet and thinks it was Cyrus. So these people fight and Beatrice does the swap as the police arrive, cutting to black. We get the title card Coda, which is not pretentious at all. Forbes in Beatrice's body shows up to the house as people are breaking everything down, implying the wedding isn't happening. So now the movie smells its own ass by reveling in how clever it is by presenting this twist as some huge reveal.
I'm Forbes. You're in my body.
To try summarize everything, here's where everyone ended up. Dennis is in Forbes, Maya is in Brooke, Cyrus/Shelby are in their original bodies, Nikki ends up in Ruben, and Beatrice somehow runs off in Nikki's body with Dennis's money and the machine. Now let me try to break this down. Beatrice stole Forbes' body to come to this party to, I guess, mess with the people who kind of ruined her life. Mainly Ruben and Dennis, who lied about the party to make sure they were safe while Forbes was expelled and Beatrice was institutionalized. Her main goal seems to be to steal Dennis's money, which she accomplishes in the very first round by using his phone to access the least secured bank account of all time. What was her goal after that? Unsure. All the problems that made everyone come into conflict were completely out of her control. She couldn't have predicted Ruben would fuck someone else on the roof and fall. Maybe she was just playing around, but the film presents her at the end like some sort of mastermind, when really on paper she was actually winging it. Also, how did she get away? The police just showed up and the body she was in was frozen from the peanut butter. She doesn't need to be questioned about the supposed murders that happened. Also, Nikki did not go out of her way to stop her from leaving with her body and the machine. Speaking of Nikki, she is left in an awkward place as we never see her as Ruben past this quick cut of her after the swap. I guess we are just supposed to think she called off the wedding because we never see her in this epilogue. Our last true image of her is her freaking out being in Ruben's body. However, we have to guess she gathered herself enough to follow through on her word about not backing Cyrus up because he's in jail. I guess nobody backed him up, so I guess fuck Cyrus. Dennis thinks he took his money, Nikki hated him because of an ultimatum she assumed he agreed to, Maya, I guess, for pretending to be Forbes and making out with her while she was using her friend's non-consenting body, Shelby because of their entire relationship, and Beatrice because she doesn't give a shit. Let's talk about Cyrus because his fate really rubbed me the wrong way. For context, I am someone in the Christian from Midsommar got everything that was coming to him camp. Now let me be clear, Cyrus sucks. But did he deserve to go to jail for a murder he did not commit? Dennis and Shelby clearly have problems with him even before this night, but this decision to just let him be arrested seems so cold-hearted. No one felt bad about this? Sure, he did cheat on her and lied about his love for her, but prison? Just say he didn't kill them and never talk to him again. To really justify this decision, the movie needed to make Cyrus the top-tier scumbag of the group. Maybe he was the one who messed with Beatrice in college instead of Dennis. Maybe we see more instances of him gaslighting Shelby, making everyone uncomfortable. Instead, it is actually very debatable who is the worst person in this friend group. Ruben also cheated, Brooke was an active, knowing participant, Dennis was also dishonest in his past relationships, Nikki pretends to give a shit for goodwill, Maya also used someone else's body for physical interaction, and Shelby literally tried to steal someone else's entire life. All these people suck, but the movie giving Cyrus the worst hand feels so forced so they can make the ending happen. So then we get to Shelby. I really wish I knew more about her and her perspective outside all of this. Her whole character revolves around Cyrus, but we are never even shown what she likes about him. We are told Shelby has a hard time standing up for herself, but almost every interaction she has with Cyrus is an argument where she is pushing back against him on something. These two people have been together for 9 years, and their arguments never come across as people who have had any good time to look back on. This maybe could have worked if you really leaned into presenting Shelby as unconfident, with Cyrus creating a very oppressive environment for her, but instead you portray her as desperate for any sort of attention and Cyrus as a porn-addicted idiot. I don't understand what she is getting out of this to make her stay. She is clearly the one putting an effort to keep him around, but why? Is she afraid to be alone? We don't know. Does she feel like she has already invested too much time into him? We don't know. Did she see a side of him that she felt made her special? We never know, and we really needed to know more about Shelby for the ending to really work. She tells Cyrus that she will continue to lie about his innocence just because he hurt her feelings.
Feelings are facts! No, they're not. Facts are facts.
It frames her in this light where we are supposed to feel proud that she is getting back at him. The last frame of this film is her telling him to fuck off as she hangs up the phone. It even hard cuts to credits like some sort of mic drop.
So fuck on that, bitch!
Am I supposed to clap? This wouldn't have rings so hollow if Shelby also took some responsibility for what had happened. She had caused way more problems for everyone than Cyrus did that night, but only Cyrus suffers in any way. I wonder if instead of this unjustified ending, a more befitting fate for these two would be permanently swapping them into each other's bodies. Cyrus trapped in the body he has neglected, and Shelby trapped in the body she hates, forced to forever see everything from the other's perspective. Or just die. Instead, the movie just expects us to root for a shitty character getting back at another shitty character for one of the shitty things he actually did not do. Shit movie, shit ending, made me mad. Now, I will compliment Inside a little, as I have mostly shat on it up until now. It is genuinely impressive what they were able to accomplish on a small budget visually. While I still stand by my criticisms of them not fitting and being overwhelming, it does take a ton of effort to set up these kinds of shots and edit them as smoothly as this movie does. Greg Jardin, the director and screenwriter, also edited the film, which means he was very mindful during production of how this would be stitched together. It is all a shame it was all in favor of a really terrible screenplay that thought it was more clever than it was. Otherwise, I feel like I have explained why these two movies, despite having similar ideas, are not comparable in terms of quality. Inside hides behind the veneer of fun, while Bodies is just fun. When it comes to portraying Gen Z in horror comedy or really any genre, you need to have a really good sense of character to keep it from feeling lazy. I think another important aspect of these portrayals is the idea of consequence. If you hate anyone in Bodies, they do suffer some sort of consequence for their bad behaviors, while Inside really only elects to focus hard on the suffering of one character and leave every other shitty character's outcome vague and open-ended. Now, you can have a movie where a shitty person does not suffer true consequences if that is the point of your story, but these movies ain't trying to do that. In conclusion, I think the lesson should be that if you want to use stereotypes of a generation as an excuse to write a shitty script, just don't do that. Alright, thanks, bye.